As a matter of fact, some point later, and this is, I don't know, I'm not sure which week, we had just about reached a method of solving this thing, which, as I understand it, had been agreed to by him. And it was certainly had been agreed to by us. And the only thing that was left to do was to sort of set the stage for a meeting and get the whole thing behind us and it would be over with. Well, as I'm told, some headline writer for one of the newspapers, in putting the story together, said mayor compromises or something to that effect, and the mayor apparently went through the ceiling.
Yes.
It wasn't, he didn't evaluate the thing that the thing was going to be settled. He had been personally put into a position where it was said that he compromised, not even recognizing the fact that the union had compromised. And
by the same token, again, this explanation, when he walked into the meeting of you four and found out that you were ready to come to an agreement, in his mind, he wanted the agreement to come as a result of his protestation or recommendation to the workers who would capitulate or acquiesce as a result of his beneficence.
Yeah, I think...
I mean, why would he not want to settle it? Do you think it was that dues check off as much as the other thing of the image? I mean...
I think it was the image thing. See, that meeting was in the first week, and he was not convinced that you know, this plantation psychology would get the employees back to work. And I think he was furious because, in my opinion, he had no intention of anything coming out of that meeting. It was just a facade.
Yep.
Let me give you an example of what I mean. On a Thursday, I believe, he holds open house.
Yes, he does.
And makes a great thing out of it. Anybody who wants to can come down and get their problems worked on.
Right.
And we tried to point out to him the fact that these types of employees are not going to come down to his office with a problem because it'll be the last time they do it. We had a membership meeting set for that Thursday at noon. And he kept making a big thing about, you know, any men you want to bring down to talk to me, I'll talk to them. So we went out to Firestone Hall, and that was, I believe, the first march. And all the men marched all the way from Firestone Hall, out on Firestone Road, to City Hall to see him. Mr. Ciampa and myself, we went up to the office and told him that he had put out the invitation and the men were there to see him. So either in great gusto, bring them in. You know, we could tell him, you can't bring the number that we've got into the office. Oh, bring them on in. And then he took a look out the window. Well, all the men were out there. So he said, well, we'll take them over to South Hall and I'll just address them and we'll get the whole thing behind me. We kept telling him, these men are not in a frame of mind where you can convince them just by your speaking to them to go back to work. Well, he felt he was going to do it, and though he probably believes to this day that we rigged the thing to make him look bad, it wasn't. We just knew what the attitudes of the men were, and we knew what he was going to say. So we took all the men over to South Hall. We set up some rules for operation, which eventually got broken. But the idea was for him to speak to him, and they booed him off the stage because he was giving them this thing that for years and years, I've taken care of you, and my daddy has taken care of you, and many of you men are good friends of mine, and you all know how I've treated you, and this type of thing. And the men were just not in the frame of mind to listen to that type of a presentation.
Were you on the stage with him?
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, we got into a little bit of a jostling match, maybe because I misinterpreted what the rules were. I wasn't sure, but the understanding was that Mr. Ciampa would introduce and speak, then while it was one, the other side, then the other side. I'm not sure how it went, but anyhow, we got out of order some kind of way. Or the mayor wanted the opportunity to rebut something that was said, and we wound up at the microphone at the same time. The story the newspapers made a big to-do out of it, but it didn't amount to a hill of beans, really.
Well, now, let me go back again to the Rabbi Wax and those negotiations. That was the night, that first night at St. Mary's Cathedral was when you were sitting on either side of the table and not speaking directly to each other, is that? I mean, what was your thought of that? I mean, what?
We felt it was the most ridiculous thing we'd ever seen.
Okay, but then when Worf came in, then he did talk to Worf, is that?
Let me see if I can recall exactly how. I don't believe during that particular meeting that they did talk. Well, no, I'll take that back. They did as
Work
the thing.
came in about 11 o'clock at night,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
As the meeting went on and on, it became more and more ridiculous for, one side to say something to the front of the table and then the front of the table respond to the other side and this type thing. They eventually did get down to responding when a statement was made, but not talking to each other, but looking that way and talking over here.
Of course, you can't speak to Mr. Worf, but when he met the mayor first under those circumstances, what was his?
The same, it was ridiculous.
Okay.
It didn't make sense at all.
I don't want to dwell on that. We have part of that meeting on tape, as a matter of fact. But then, subsequent to that, you had much more involvement of the black community.
Right. I think what was the real catalyst to the involvement of everyone was the council meeting.